10 things I have given up to avoid wasting time. Time is the most precious asset, yet we often lose it to useless habits, clutter, and worries that bring no benefit. In today's video, I will share 10 particular things I have let go of, from stopping the chase for perfection, saying no to pleasing everyone, quitting endless social media scrolling, avoiding impulsive shopping, to dropping the habit of cleaning around piles of stuff. It may sound simple, but these changes have helped me save hours each day and brought peace into my own home. I believe that letting go of the right things is just as important as starting something new. And at the end of the video, I will reveal a surprising message that may make you see your time in a completely different way. So watch until the very last minute. You won't want to miss it. And before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you find this content helpful. Your support is the motivation for us to continue sharing many more meaningful things. Thank you sincerely for being here. Secret 1. Stop trying to be perfect. For many years, I thought that everything I did had to be neat and perfect to be worthy of others' recognition. But that very thought cost me far too much time. I remember once, just to write a thank you letter, I sat for hours editing every sentence and then hesitated to send it. The result was that the small task kept being delayed, while I felt exhausted. Later, I realized that perfection never truly exists. What we call perfection usually only lives in our own minds, while others rarely notice the tiny details we obsess over. I began applying the 80-20 rule. That is, 80% of results usually come from the first 20% of effort. If I spent another 80% of my time just to reach a tiny bit of perfection, I would be drained while the benefit barely increased. So I reminded myself, done is better than good. A plan finished today, even if not fully polished, is still more valuable than a draft stuck in the drawer forever. Once I dared to let go of perfectionism, I felt lighter. I started completing more tasks, and more importantly, I had more time for what truly mattered, like talking with my grandchildren, reading favorite books, or simply resting. Giving up perfection does not mean living carelessly, but knowing what is enough and appreciating the value of the present. Secret 2. Stop trying to please everyone. I once thought I was kind by always being ready to say yes to every request, even when I didn't want to. But I realized that every time I tried to please others, I drifted away from my own real needs. Once, an acquaintance asked me to attend a meeting that dragged on for hours. I reluctantly agreed because I was afraid to say no, and in the end, I was tired and left my own important work unfinished. The truth is, no matter how hard you try, there will always be someone dissatisfied. We cannot control others' feelings or opinions, but we can choose how to respond. When I learned to say no gently, I finally felt truly free. Instead of agreeing and then regretting, I started asking myself, does this align with my values and my time? If the answer was no, I smiled and declined. At first, it was difficult, but gradually I felt relief because I was living true to myself. Stopping the habit of pleasing everyone does not mean being selfish. It simply means knowing how to prioritize what matters most: health, peace, and the relationships that truly deserve to be cherished. When we stop seeking outside approval, we finally hear the voice within. And that is how we live a more intentional life. Secret 3. Stop overscheduling. There was a time I thought the fuller my calendar, the more effective my life. Each day I packed in appointments, tasks, and housework, only to come home at night with an exhausted body and a tense mind. I used to be proud of being busy, but in reality, that was the fastest road to burnout. When my schedule was too tight, I had no room to breathe, to rest, or simply to enjoy a quiet afternoon with a cup of tea. And with no breathing room, even a small unexpected task made me twice as stressed. After falling ill several times from exhaustion, I had to reflect. I began to leave blank spaces in my schedule, treating them as appointments with myself. That could be 30 minutes for a walk, 1 hour for reading, or simply doing nothing. Strangely, when I did less, I accomplished more. Because both body and mind were recharged, I worked with more focus and efficiency. Stopping the habit of overscheduling also taught me one thing: saying no to others is saying yes to my own health and peace. Now, I no longer chase busyness to prove my worth. I choose a schedule with breathing space, with just enough work and just enough rest, so that life is not just a to-do list, but also moments truly worth living. Secret 4. Stop endless social media scrolling. Perhaps this is the habit that stole the most time in my life. At first, I only intended to check the news for a few minutes or glance at some friends' photos, but then hours persisted and I got nothing done. New content kept appearing, making me scroll endlessly until suddenly the whole afternoon had disappeared. I realized I did not feel any happier, only more tired and restless. After many times like that, I asked myself, if I spent this time cleaning a drawer, walking outside, or talking with a loved one, would life feel lighter? The answer was always yes. So I set a rule for myself. The phone has a fixed charging spot, and I only allow myself to check social media at specific times, no longer than 15 minutes each time. At first, I felt empty without the phone in my hand, but after just a few weeks, I got used to the silence. I found more time to read, to focus on tidying small corners of the house, and most importantly, I felt my mind become clearer. Stopping endless scrolling does not mean abandoning social media altogether, but learning to master it instead of letting it swallow every precious moment of life. Secret 5. Stop multitasking. For many years, I believed that doing many things at once would save time. I often cooked while on the phone, drafted papers while replying to messages, and even sometimes cleaned while watching television. But the more I did, the more I realized that instead of being faster, everything took twice as long. Each interruption forced my brain to take extra time to refocus, and many times I made mistakes simply from not paying attention. Once, I was on the phone while writing down a prescription as the doctor instructed, and I wrote one small detail wrong, having to call back and correct it, wasting an entire afternoon. That experience made me see clearly that multitasking is merely an illusion of productivity. Since deciding to do one thing at a time, I feel lighter. When writing, I only write. When cleaning, I only focus on each item. When resting, I let myself truly rest. Surprisingly, that simple focus helps me finish tasks much faster. I no longer feel stressed from spinning around like before, and I rarely make mistakes. Stopping multitasking helps me fully enjoy each moment and turns every task I do into a complete experience, instead of just a fragmented piece of rush. Secret 6. Stop keeping things just in case. In my home, there used to be a whole corner piled with items kept because I might need them someday. They were old, dented pots, phone chargers for models no longer in use, or stacks of expired papers. I thought keeping them cost nothing, but in reality, each item took up space and consumed extra time every time I cleaned. Whenever I opened a cabinet, I had to dig through heaps of useless things to find what I actually needed. Gradually, I realized that over-preparation was itself a burden. Instead of holding on to dozens of maybe-needed things, I learned to trust that when I truly needed something, I could borrow, replace, or buy it again. In fact, I rarely regretted discarding a just-in-case item. Removing this excess made my home more open, my movements easier, and most importantly, my mind clearer. I no longer felt surrounded by the past or by assumptions about the future. Stopping the habit of keeping things just in case is my way of living fully in the present and appreciating the space I have now. Secret 7. Stop impulsive shopping. In the past, every trip to the supermarket or a casual browse online often ended with me bringing home a little item as a self-reward. Sometimes it was a cute mug, cheap decorations, or a notebook I never wrote in. Buying them made me happy for a moment, but the joy faded quickly, leaving behind things I never used. They slowly filled the cupboards, made cleaning more time-consuming, and eventually became a burden. I began to set myself the 24-hour rule. If I wanted to buy something beyond real necessity, I would wait one day before deciding. Usually, after 24 hours, I forgot about it, which was a clear sign I did not need it. I also learned to distinguish between need and desire. If it were a need, the item would serve daily life and make living easier. If it were just a fleeting desire, it would soon be abandoned in a corner. Stopping impulsive shopping not only saved money, but also reduced clutter. Now, when I look around my home, I see things that are truly useful and connected to everyday life, instead of a pile of items bought on a whim. Secret 8. Stop cleaning around piles of stuff. I used to spend so much time just surface cleaning. The living room shelves were full of souvenirs. The kitchen counter was crowded with spice jars and plastic containers, and each time I cleaned, I had to lift and replace every single item. That fatigue made me delay housework, knowing it would take hours to clean just one small area. Later, I realized the problem was not the cleaning itself, but the sheer number of items left out in plain sight. When I began to put away things that were not really needed, surfaces became clear, and in just a few minutes I could wipe the entire counter or cabinet top. I still keep a few decorations to give the room warmth, but I choose only meaningful ones instead of keeping everything. Thanks to that, cleaning became lighter, quicker, and less stressful. Stopping the habit of cleaning around piles of stuff not only saves time but also brings peace to the eye. A tidy room with fewer obstacles makes us feel more at ease, and housework becomes simple instead of a weekly burden. Secret 9. Stop endless researching before starting. I used to spend hours, even days, gathering information before beginning anything new. If I wanted to buy a vacuum cleaner, I would read dozens of reviews, compare every small detail, and then still hesitate to decide. If I planned to try a new hobby, I would read every guide, watch countless videos, and in the end, time passed while nothing began. I realized that this over-preparation did not improve me. It only caused procrastination and fear of mistakes. In fact, it was perfectionism disguised as research. Later, I trained myself to change. I allowed myself to start even without knowing everything. I chose just enough basic information to begin, then let experience guide me. Once I started, I learned and adjusted as I went, and those small mistakes became valuable lessons. That way, I advanced much further than if I had just sat reading without doing. Stopping endless research taught me that action is the key. Prepare just enough, start right away, and learn on the journey. That's the fastest way to turn intention into real results. Secret 10. Stop worrying about things beyond control. For a long time, I often lost sleep thinking about all the possible situations that might happen. I worried about health, about my grandchildren's future, about changes in society I could never control. The more I worried, the more exhausted I became, yet nothing changed. Then I came across a very simple question. If there is a problem, can you do something about it right now? If the answer was yes, then act instead of worrying. If the answer was no, then worrying changed nothing. From then on, I began to focus on what I could control. Keeping light exercise habits, clearing pathways for safety, and preparing simple, healthy meals. These small actions gave me a sense of control and much greater peace of mind. As for things beyond my reach, I learned to accept and let go. I reminded myself that peace does not come from controlling everything, but from knowing how to keep responsibility on my part. Once I stopped useless worrying, my mind felt lighter, my heart calmer, and I had more time to enjoy every present moment. These 10 secrets are not for living perfectly, but for living more lightly, saving time, and enjoying the present. When we let go of unnecessary habits, we make space for peace and joy. You don't need to do everything at once. Just pick one thing to begin today. Your home and your life will gradually change step by step. If you find these insights helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for being here. See you in the next video.